Hi guys, and in today's video we're going to take an in-depth look at the FOnewm. Hi everyone, and in today's video we're going to continue the series of class guides for PSO Blueburst, and in today's video, as you may have guessed, we're looking at the FOnewm. So what we'll do is we'll go through what the name of the class means, we'll go through the basic stat distribution and just how the stats are laid out, so you can see where it excels and where it falls behind. Then what we'll do is we'll compare that to level 1, level 200, and with max stats. Next, I'll go through some of the advantages and disadvantages of FOnewm, as well as some recommended gear that you might want to use for the class as well. And then just to round the video out, we'll do a boss fight as well, just so I can show you how FOnewm works in a boss fight. So the first thing we need to cover, as usual with these videos, is the name. So if you haven't seen any of these videos before, the way PSO works is the naming system for the game basically breaks down the archetype of the class. So for FOnewm, the 4 at the start of the name means force, which means that we're primarily a technique user. And the Newman part means that we are a male Newman. So Newm is for male Newman and New World is for female Newman. So for New World is a female Newman force. And for Newm is a male Newman force. So it's quite an easy one to remember. So next what we'll do is we'll look at some of how the stats are laid out. So at level 1, we start with 27 HP, which is actually the least of any class in the game. It's tied with FOnewm. We have 90 TP, which is the highest of any class in the game, just ahead of FOnewm. We have 16 attack power, which is the joint highest of the forces, so it's joint with Formar and Formal, but a little bit ahead of FOnewm. We have 7 defense. Yes, 7 defense, which is the lowest of the game by quite some margin. We have 60 mental strength, so we have the highest mental strength in the game at level 1. Our accuracy, our ATA, is 61, which is the lowest of any class in the game to begin with. And our evade is 61, which is the highest of any class in the game. So we are a class, at level 1, we are a class of extremes. So we have the very lowest of stats, but we also have the very highest. There's not really much that's in between. In fact, looking at the stats on the FOnewm wiki, the only stat that isn't an extreme low or extreme high is the attack power, which is average. Everything else is either the lowest in the game or the highest in the game. So if we then move on to level 200, and this is level 200 base stats without materials or anything, our HP goes to 1232, which is middle of the road for a force, so it's still low, but it's average for a force. Our TP goes to 1945, which is very, very high. It's just behind FOnewm, which is the highest in the game. So we do actually fall behind slightly on TP as we level up compared to FOnewm. Our attack power is 613, which is low, but is significantly higher than FOnewm. It's a little way behind Formar and Formal. Our defense goes to 408, which, strangely enough, is actually the highest of any force. So although we start with that terrible 7 defense, we actually end up with base level 200 stats with the highest defense of any force. So we do have quite good defense growth as we level. Our mental strength goes to 1098, which is very, very high, but is actually quite a way behind FOnewm. It's over 100 mental strength behind. Our ATA, our accuracy, goes to 128, which is the lowest of any class in the game. And our evade goes to 531, which is roughly average for a force. So you can see as we level up, there is a few little changes in the stats, so we do kind of normalize our stats a bit more. You can see though there is still a very big shift towards very high mental strength. We have very high TP. But we also actually have pretty respectable attack and evade as well. If we then factor in maximum stats, so this is with a full material plan, with mag and everything, our HP goes to 1482, which is, again, roughly average for a force. It's actually just ahead of Formar, but a little bit behind Formal. Our TP goes to 2798, which is massive. But having said that, it is still behind FOnewm, which goes to over 3000. Our attack power goes to 814, which is actually really respectable for a force. We are a little bit behind the two human forces. In fact, we are quite a way behind FOnewm, but it's still 814 attack power. Crucially, is still enough to use some very important gear. And we are far, far ahead of FOnewm, which has just under 600. Our defense goes to 463. So our defense is a very strange stat with FOnewm. So we start with the lowest in the game at level 1. We'll go to the highest of all the forces at level 200 base stats. But then if we factor in materials, we fall behind the two human forces a little bit. There isn't much difference though. Our TP maxes at 1,500, which is massive. It is a little way behind FOnewm at 1,750, but we still have a very, very high amount of mental strength and TP. Our attack accuracy goes to 180. So although it is the lowest in the game at level 200 base stats, with items that increase accuracy, our accuracy actually isn't too bad. In fact, 180 is actually not too far behind the hunters. So it is perfectly usable. We're a little bit behind FOnewm at 186, but ahead of the two human forces. And our evade goes to 679, which is pretty average for a force. So what you can see is, with max stats included, we are swinging quite heavily towards mental strength and TP. So this should give you a rough indication of how to use FOnewm. So FOnewm, to put it in other game terms, is, I would describe it as essentially like the Black Mage class of PSO. Your number one job with a FOnewm is just blowing stuff up. Now, other forces can do that really well as well, but FOnewm is fantastic for it for several reasons. So next up, what we need to talk about is the techniques and technique boosts. So most forces in the game get boosts to certain kind of techniques, and this will either give the techs more damage if it's attack techs, or it might give them more range for support techs, and it lets each of the forces have their own little niche that they fall into. So first of all, we'll cover the technique levels. So if you've watched any of the other force videos, you know what to expect. So we basically have access to everything. So as a FOnewm, we have access to all of the simple techs, Foy, Zonde, and Barter, up to level 30. I don't on this character just because this is a sandbox character that I've just edited techniques onto, so I don't have everything on this. But just know that in typical gameplay, you will have access to level 30 techs for simple attacks, so Foy, Zonde, Barter. You'll have level 30 up to level 34 Gifoy, Gizonde, and Gibarter. Level 34 up to level 34 Rafoy, Razonde, Rabata, Grant, and Megid. Level 30 Rester, level 7 Anti, and you can learn Reverser. And then support techniques, you get level 30 Shifter, Deband, Jelen, Zalo, and you can learn Ryuka. So you basically get the full suite of techs and get everything, just like every other force. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that forces get boosts in different areas. So with FOnewm, your boosts are mainly attack oriented. So your boosts, you get a 30% damage boost, and that applies to your normal attacks, which are Gifoy, Gizonde, and Gibada. You get a 30% boost in damage to those. You also get a 30% boost in damage to your hard techs. Now, there is limitations with this, so you get a 30% boost to Rafoy, Razonde, and Rabata, but you do not get a boost to Grants or Megid. They're separate. You tend to find that forces that have boosts to those, it's a separate boost. So just know that for FOnewm, you are focusing mainly on your Gifoy, Gizonde, Gibada, Rafoy, Razonde, Rabata. Now, realistically, in gameplay, it's rare that you'll use Gibada. It's typically not a very useful tech. Most people pass over Gibada for Rabata instead. So you're mainly going to be using Gifoy, Gizonde, Rafoy, Razonde, Rabata. But what you can see is that FOnewm is very much orientated towards damage techniques. So it is all about just doing damage with techniques to enemies. Because of that, there are a couple of little issues with it. So it is probably one of the worst forces for support. Yes, you still have level 30 Rester. Yes, you still have your level 7 Anti. You still can revive people with Reverser. You've still got all the level 30 buffs and debuffs. So you are still fantastic support. But you don't get increased range in any of it. So to get that, you need to use gear to help you out with that. On the subject of gear, let's look at a few different pieces of equipment that might help you with a FOnewm. So the first thing we'll talk about with gear, like we normally do, is your mag, because in PSO your mag is fundamentally important to your character and will massively influence how well your character plays. FOnewm is quite an interesting class, so although it is obviously designed as a class to nuke things with techs, it can kind of get away with doing some melee as well. And the reason I mentioned the attack power in specific earlier is because we can max at just over 800 attack power, that means we can get enough attack power to use things like Excalibur. So for mag, actually, there's two recommendations. So the first one is a typical mind mag. So 5 defense, no power, 45 dex, 150 mind. This is for if you want to just go full offensive techs and support, but mainly for offensive techs. With a mag like this, you're not going to have enough attack power to use a lot of the melee weapons that you can use with FOnewm. So just be aware that if you go this route, you are concentrating solely on nuking. So this is one option you can go with, and it will do you perfectly fine. You are buying into that boost that you get with the Gi and Ratex with FOnewm. So using a mind mag like this will give you more mental strength. It'll help you learn the techs earlier, and it will also help you to do more damage with them. So that's a totally fine choice. Another option you can go with is you can actually go with a mag that maxes the important stats for FOnewm. So this would be something like this. So the Affinia wiki actually recommends a mag like this if you're going for some max stats. Now this won't help you max everything necessarily, but if you go with 5 defense, 88 power, 61 dex, and 46 mind, this allows you to max a lot of your important stats by level 200. The downside is though that using a mag like this, you will have to invest a lot of time into very specific gear. So if you're going with this kind of mag, to get those maximum stats in terms of your important stats maxed, you would actually need to use with it a V101, a V801, an Adept, and a Red Ring, and 150 mind materials. So it's a huge investment. This is kind of one of the problems with playing a Newman Force, well, a Newman character in general, to be honest. They are notoriously hard to max out and to max the important stats on. So it is kind of your choice how you go with the mag for FOnewm. Typically, I think you'll get by fine with a general mind mag, but if you do want to bring melee in as well, you may need to either use power materials to raise your attack power a bit, or you may need to sacrifice some of that mind and have some more power on your mag instead. Ultimately, it's up to you how you want to play. It depends if you want to go the hybrid route or if you want to just go pure nuking. Entirely up to you. In regards to photon blasts, usual 3, so I just recommend Estella, Pillar, Myla, and Eula. Estella and Pillar just mainly for your damage, and then Myla and Eula mainly just to help with photon blast chains in multiplayer. Just in case other players don't have Myla and Eula available, just so you can still get that really, really high level shifter and deband. Solo, you're not going to use Myla and Eula because you've got level 30 shifter and deband anywhere, so it's not going to help you at all. So for solo play, you're going to use Estella or Pillar, but for party play, you might use Myla and Eula just to help others out. That's mag. So the first bit of gear I'd recommend, this will depend on how you want to play FOnewm. So if you want to go that hybrid route, you can go with something like Excalibur. So Excalibur, I recommend this in basically every single video. And what it is, it's a saber that hits 3 targets. It has a berserk special, so it's incredibly strong. And it's just generally one of the strongest weapons in the game, if not the strongest. Now, FOnewm, if you go with this hybrid route, so if you do go with this mag here, if you use this and use some gear that boosts your attack power as regards to units, and potentially use some power materials, it's up to you if you want to do that, you can just get enough attack power to use Excalibur. So it will require a lot of investment to use this on FOnewm, but it is an option if you want to. So just generally very, very strong weapon, great for killing small clusters of enemies. Also helps FOnewm preserve his TP a little bit as well. That's one option. Additionally, if you want to go the melee route, you can also go with things like some S-rank weapons. These are got from doing challenge mode. So first one is S-rank J Cutter. So S-rank J Cutter is a slicer. So it will hit up to 4 targets. Now, special for this, it depends on what you want to go with. Ones I would recommend would either be something like Arrest. So Arrest is a paralysis special. Obviously, being able to paralyze a big group of enemies is really, really handy for a fragile class like a Force, because it lets you lock enemies in place and then you can just take them out while they're locked up with paralysis. You could also go with something like Hell. Hell will help you in areas like episode 2, where some enemies have low dark resist. Or alternatively, something like demons, like this one. So demons, what this does is when you hit enemies with it, it will cut their HP by a certain percentage. Now, humans and humans get the full benefit of demons, so demons will reduce enemy HP by 75%, so it's a big HP reduction. On the subject of demons and S ranks, you can also go with something like a demon's Mech Gun. So S rank Mech Guns, I would not use something like a regular demon's Mech Gun because the special will get reduced quite a bit in chance of it landing. So with an S rank Mech Gun, it's unreduced, so you have a very, very good chance of being able to land the special with these. However, again, these do require a bit of investment to use, so these require 180 accuracy to use. You can see I've just got enough accuracy to use these, but I will say that this character is using a lot of really, really high-end gear at the moment, and I've only just been able to get that, so it is a very, very hard requirement to reach. So just be aware of that if you are going to go with Demon's Mechs. So next up, for support weapons, we've also got things like the Bringer's Rifle. So a Bringer's Rifle is a rifle that is usable by forces as well. And the main reason you use this, again, is for its special. And again, it's a demon special, so again, you can just cut enemy HP with it. And obviously, with it being a rifle, it has really, really long range. So you can use this to snipe things from afar and take the HP down. Great thing about Bringer's Rifle as well is that its accuracy requirement isn't actually that high. It's only 140 to equip. So it's actually fairly obtainable for a FOnewm to use. Next, if you're not really interested in the melee side and you just want to go with all-out teching and just nuking things, there's a few options you can use. So generally, we can look at weapons that boost different techniques. So the first one is something like the Magical Piece. So Magical Piece is fairly simple to get. So the way you get this is you grind a normal wand, and what you do is you then, once it's at max grind, you equip it on a force with a certain requirement in terms of mental strength and level. And then you use an item called Magic Rock Heart Key on it. Now, Magic Rock Heart Key, you get that from Gallon's shop, from Paganini's Photon Drop shop. I think it's around 40 Photon Drops somewhere on there. You use the Heart Key on the wand and it will turn into a Magical Piece. The reason that this is really useful is because this is a weapon that actually boosts your Gizonde, Gifoy, and Gabata by 30%. So that will stack on top of the FOnewm native boost. So it will give you huge, huge damage with those three techniques. So with this, you want to be spamming a lot of Gifoy and Gizonde. Again, not so much Gabata, but this is one option. If you're at lower level, you can get other weapons that do this as well. So there are a series of weapons called Fire Scepter Agni, Ice Staff Dagon, and Stormwand Indra. And they give small boosts to all of your elemental techs as well. So Fire Scepter Agni will boost all of your fire techs by a small amount. Ice Staff Dagon will do the same for ice, and Stormwand Indra will do the same for lightning techs. So there are other options as well, and they're very easy to get. On the subject of boosting techniques, we could also go with something like a Summit Moon. So Summit Moon is actually gotten in a very, very similar way to Magical Piece. So it's the same process. So instead of grinding a wand, you grind a cane. And instead of using a Magic Rock Heart Key, you use a Magic Rock Moolah. So Moolah is just a drop from enemies. And there are some quite easy drops to get that from. Summit Moon it's quite often used a lot by FOnewm because it boosts simple tech. So it boosts your Foy, Zonde, and Barter. Now, you may not use those as much with a FOnewm because you don't get native boosts in them, but there are situations where it just doesn't make sense to use an AoE tech. You might just want to hit one target, for example. So this will help you in those situations. Generally, though, I would say it's probably less useful on FOnewm than it is on FOnewm, just because FOnewm has those boosts anyway. Next up, we can go with, for support, we can go with some other weapons to boost those. So, Striker of Chow. The Striker of Chow is made from, there's a couple of ways to get it. So, first of all, you need what's called a branch of Paku Paku. It's just a drop from a few different enemies. And then the two ways of making it is you can either raise a Chow mag and then use the Chow mag on the branch of Paku Paku, and it will turn it into a Striker of Chow. The advantage of doing it that way is that it will transfer the attributes from the branch of Paku Paku onto the Striker of Chow, but you'll lose the Chow mag. The other way of doing it is to do the quest Towards the Future. equip a branch of Paku Paku at the start of the quest, and if you go into the Pioneer 2 Medical Center, there's a secret warp in there. And all you need to do is it'll take you to ruins, and you just need to stand under the waterfall in ruins for a few minutes, and a Chow will attach itself to the branch. You won't lose a mag or anything by doing it, but the only downside of it is that you don't get any attributes on the Striker of Chow. However, realistically, you're probably not going to be meleeing with the Striker of Chow anyway, so to me, it's not a big deal. The main reason that we'd use this on a FOnewm is because, as I mentioned, we have no boost to any of our support techs, and that includes the range of Shifter and D-Band. With Striker of Chow, we get double range with Shifter and D-Band. So you can see we have quite a big range on that. And this is just because of the Striker of Chow. So, in the same vein, you can also use a weapon like Glide Divine. So, Glide Divine, this doubles your range of Jelen and Zalur. There are several reasons why this is a fantastic weapon though. So, first of all, as I've mentioned, we have that boost to Jelen and Zalur range, so we can debuff enemies easier, which again, FOnewm doesn't get natively. Second thing is, its special attack is actually a low-level anti. Now, this will only cure certain statuses. I think Poison, Shock, maybe one of the status it'll get rid of, but it's limited in its use, but it's a nice way of saving a little bit of TP. So if someone gets poisoned, you don't need to cast anti, you can just do the special attack. It'll cost you no TP, and it'll cure the poison. Another great thing about the Glide Divine, which I can't show at the moment, is if you keep it equipped for 10 minutes straight, and then go to your menu, when you select Glide Divine, normally weapons will look like this and it'll say remove, drop, or sort. If you keep Glide Divine equipped for 10 minutes, it will change to use. So remove will change to use. If you press use, what it will do is it has a secret ability where it will sacrifice all of your HP apart from 1. So it'll drop you to 1 HP, but it will refill all of your TP. So it's a fantastic way of just refilling your TP for free. Obviously, you're going to have to spend a tiny bit of it to heal back up again, or you can use a mate to do that, but it's a fantastic free TP refill. Downsides of it is that it is only every 10 minutes, and you do have to keep it equipped as well, which is a little bit annoying sometimes, because sometimes you want to switch to another weapon for its boosts. For example, your buffs might run out and you might want to switch to the Striker of Chow to get a double range. You can't really do it, because then you'll need to re-equip Glide for 10 minutes again. But it is another way of getting TP back, so just bear that in mind. It is a really, really useful weapon, Glide Divine. So another weapon you can go with, we're talking sort of endgame stuff now, so there's 2 endgame weapons. So we have Prophets of Mortav. So the main reason that you would use Prophets of Mortav is because Prophets of Mortav gives you a 20% boost to Rafoy, Razonde, and Rabata, which will obviously stack on top of your FOnewm boost. So you'll do huge damage with this. Its special attack is really, really useless. So its special attack casts Jelen or Zalur, but it's only level 5, and you can only use this on a force, so it's completely pointless. The other issue with this weapon is it is incredibly hard to get. You may be able to get it through Black Paper's deal. I can't remember if it drops there, but its normal drop, particularly if you're playing episode 1 and 2, is very, very hard to get. If you are going for this, I would probably recommend passing this over and going for Psycho Wand instead. So Psycho Wand gives you a 30% boost to Rafoy, Razonde, and Rabata. So it's a huge boost to those techs that are already getting boosted by your native boost. In addition, it will help with your TP management, because when you cast the Psycho Wand, if you look at my health, every time I cast the Psycho Wand, I actually lose health. What this is doing is, the way Psycho Wand works is every time you cast, your techniques will cost 50% of their normal TP, which is a huge reduction. But it will take the full technique TP cost off your HP instead. So if your technique costs 40 TP, you will use 20 TP to cast it, but you'll lose 40 HP. However, the reality is that it's not an issue at all, because you can just heal up. So you can see that we didn't lose any HP from casting Rester, so you can still manage it absolutely fine. But this is fantastic for managing your TP usage, because that's a huge problem with Force normally. Just managing your TP use and trying not to run out of fluids. So Psycho Wand will help a lot with that. Obviously, the big downside of Psycho Wand is it is incredibly hard to get. It's one of the hardest items to get in the game. so don't be discouraged if you can't find this. There are other items that will reduce your TP costs as well. So if you're not willing to hunt a Psycho Wand, another option you can go with, it, which is kind of like a cut price version of Psycho Wand, is the Sorcerers Cane. So Sorcerers Cane drops from usually from Grand Sorcerers, and basically what that does is it reduces your TP cost by 10%. So nowhere near as much as Psycho Wand, but it doesn't hurt you either. The other advantage of the Sorcerer's Cane is it does boost some of your techniques as well. It boosts, I believe it's your, I might be wrong on this, but I think it's your Gifoy Gazonde Gabata by a certain amount, which again are techs that are boosted by FOnewm. So it is still a fantastic weapon to use. So if you don't want to hunt a Psycho Wand, or if you want something to use while you're hunting it, you could always go for a Sorcerer's Cane. Just one thing I do need to mention about FOnewm is there is a weird thing with FOnewm where you can actually use no weapon. So if you go completely unarmed, you can see that the casting animation is actually really, really fast. So this is totally an option as well. And this actually works quite well for challenge mode as well, because if you don't get any good force drops, sometimes this is actually totally viable. And just using unarmed with FOnewm. It's one of very few classes that can really get away with it. The female forces in particular have really, really slow unarmed animations. So this is something that FOnewm can benefit from. I think FOMA can use it as well. It's up to you whether you want to go this route, because you are obviously missing out on a lot of benefits by using a weapon, but it is definitely a viable thing to do. So next what we'll do is we'll look at some defensive gear as well. So for armor, the main one I'd recommend if you're on Blue Burst is Mother Guard Plus. So Mother Guard Plus, level 101 requirement to use it. Gives the most vague description ever, which doesn't help you at all. Its resistances aren't too bad. Now there are a few benefits to using this armor. So the first benefit is you get a nice little boost to grants. So it's a 30% damage boost to grants. However, it's quite a strange boost. It only happens randomly. So now and again you'll get a 30% boost to grants, which is not particularly reliable. But there are other reasons to use this. So first of all, this armor is only usable by FOnewms. No other class can use it, which I always thought was really strange. There's a few armors in the game that are only usable by FOnewm. I think Smoking Plate's another one. But Mother Guard Plus is only usable by FOnewm. Second thing is, it reduces TP costs. And it also reduces the cost of things like spirit attacks as well, which is really, really useful. So this is a huge TP management tool and will help you a lot with FOnewm. So I definitely recommend this. There is a slightly worse version of it as well, which is just called Mother Garb. That also gives some TP reductions as well, but gives you I think it's a smaller boost to grants. So either of them will work fine, but they're both fantastic for FOnewm. You could also go with other armors that boost techniques, so things like Ignition Cloak, which will boost some of your fire techniques, or things like Tempest Cloak will boost your thunder techniques and so on. You could also go down the route of, I'm thinking for episode 2, you could use something like the Curse Cloak, which allows your Mega to penetrate enemies and hit multiple enemies at once. So that's something you could look into for episode 2 as well, but it is quite niche. Additionally, you could also, if you want to go the hybrid route, you could also run things like 13. So 13, I've mentioned it in a lot of my Hunter videos, has a set boost with Disco Braveman, which FOnewm can also use. So you can use that to get a really, really nice boost to Disco Braveman, which has a Berserk special and will let you do really, really good damage. So that's another option you can go with as well. Or for nuking though, I would definitely recommend something like Mother Guard Plus. In regards to units, so there's a few options we can use. First one, I mention this in nearly every video for Blue Burst, but V101. V101 gives you a 40% attack speed increase. It also boosts your attack power, evade, defense, mental strength, and luck by 15, and increases your accuracy by a small amount. It's one of the best units in the game. This, obviously the attack speed increase is only going to really benefit you if you are running the hybrid FOnewm, because casting animations don't get sped up by it. So if you're running that hybrid role and you want to use something like the Mech Guns or the J-Cutter that I showed, or even something like Excalibur, having something like V101 will be really, really useful for you. But even without the attack speed increase, the boosts are just really nice. There are things with better boosts, so you could use something like a Centurion ability, but this is just a really nice all-round unit. If you're playing on episode 1 and 2, where this doesn't exist. If you want to go for the battle speed increase, you want to be using a God Battle. If you want the stat increases, then you're probably looking at something like God Ability, or you could go into one of the more specialized ones like God Mind or something like that. Next up, we have Adept. So Adept is another unit that increases a lot of your stats. So increases your attack power, mental strength, evade, defense, and luck by 10. Increases your accuracy by 20. Increases all your resistances by 6. And it cuts your TP consumption by 25%. Now this, combined with the Mother Guard Plus, combined with the Psycho Wand or the Sorcerer's Cane, means that you can cut your TP consumption by a massive amount with FOnewm and just let you nuke for a lot longer. This is an absolutely fantastic unit, and it's almost a staple unit for forces, to be honest, in Blue Burst. To get this, you need to find a unit called Limiter. Once you've got it, equip Limiter and kill, I believe it's 20,000 enemies. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's 20,000 enemies. And once you've killed that many, you can use Limiter and it will turn into Adept. Next, we have V801. So V801 is another Blue Burst unit, and this speeds up your casting speed and increases your mental strength by 5. Now, the mental strength increase is negligible. It doesn't really make much difference. You're using this for the casting time. This will let you, again, just throw nukes out a lot faster. So again, fantastic unit for any force. The fourth slot, it's up to you. It's a bit of a flex slot, really. So you could use a Q unit, so you could use something like Cure Freeze, just for, you know, just a generally really useful unit. If you're using range weapons, you could rock something like Smart Link, which will negate the penalty that hunters and forces have with range weapons. You could rock another unit that increases your stats, so it's entirely up to you what you want to go with for the fourth slot. And for shields, a couple of options. So you can go with a merge. So I've got a Rafoi merge here, but any of the Gi or Ra merges will work fine. Except I would maybe avoid Gibata, just because, as we've mentioned, you don't tend to use Gibata too much. But Rafoi merge, Rabata merge, Razonde merge, Gizonde merge, they'll all work absolutely fine. They give you a really, really nice boost to those techs, which will, again, stack onto your native boosts. Defensively, they're really, really not good. They barely give you any defense or evade at all. But with a force, you're probably not going to be getting hit that much anywhere, so it's not really a big deal. So the next one is this shield called 3 Seals. So 3 Seals is a special shield that I believe you can only get it from the Wandering Tekka at the moment, which is like the gambling in Affinia. This is a really, really interesting shield, so it's a very low requirement to equip on level 33. And it's statistically, its defense and its evade are really not good. Advantages of this weapon are it gives fantastic resistances, so it gives like about 33 to every single resistance. You can see the theme of 3s here, level 33. 33 is on resistances. It also gives between 33 and 36 evade, and 33, 36 defense, so there's a bit of a theme going on. But the advantages of using this is, as well as the resistances, first of all, it boosts Razonde by 30%. So that is, again, going to stack with your FOnewm boosts. There is a few other little benefits to this, though. So, first of all, it has an ability where, now and again, it can completely negate an enemy's attack if it's physical damage. So if you're... The way the Affinia Wiki describes this is that if your defense and evade aren't enough to block the damage, the shield has a 3% chance of negating the attack and resisting it, and you'll just completely ignore the attack. It's only 3%, but it's a nice little bonus to have. Also, while this is equipped, your HP will be drained slowly. So if I move around with the shield equipped, you can see that it is very slowly draining my HP, but it's nothing to worry about at all. You can see it's absolutely nothing, the drain. So that's a very, very useful shield. Again, not so much for the defense or evade, but just for the utility that it's got. Sorry, a very, very strange shield to get. The only downside with this is that it is only available by getting it from the Wandering Tekka, which is not particularly easy to get and will probably cost you a fortune. So that's an example of some basic gear I'd recommend for FOnewm. I know I mentioned the Fire Scepter Agni, Ice Scepter Dagon, Stormwind Indra earlier. If you are wanting to focus on simple text, you can also use things like Club of Laconium, Mace of Adam, and Club of Azumiran as well. They're more for early game, but they do give huge boosts, so you can use them fine later on as well. So it's entirely up to you. It kind of depends on what text you want to prioritize. if you're playing FOnewm, you're probably going to want to prioritize your Gi and Ratex anywhere. So next up, we'll talk about some recommended section IDs for FOnewm. So again, in PSO, there are two lines of thought with making a section ID. So you can either make a section ID for that character to find stuff that they can use, or you can make a section ID for that character to find gear for other characters. Now for FOnewm, if you want to find items for FOnewm, a great ID is Pinkle. So Pinkle will let you find a lot of the early weapons that are going to be useful for the early game, like Fire Scepter Agni, Ice Staff Dagon, Stormwood Indra. They drop all over the place on Pinkle. In Ultimate, then it transitions and you can find some really good endgame stuff. So you can find things like V801, you can find Limiter, you can find Lame D'Argent to make Excalibur, and Disco Bravemans for Disco Bravemans will hit. You can also, if you want to focus on IDs to look for things for other characters, FOnewm's really, really good at hunting in certain areas. So you can use IDs such as Whitehill. Whitehill I recommend on basically every video because it's such a good all-round ID. There's fantastic things in almost every area. So Whitehill is always a good ID pick. You could also go with things like Red Rhea. So Red Rhea is a really, really good generalized ID. Finds a lot of armors and shields and units. But it's generally just a very solid ID. That's another good option. You could also go with, if you want to look for some of the like coveted drops, you could also go with an ID like Greenhill. So Greenhill gets a lot of really, really prized drops. So it gets things like V101. It gets things like Heaven Striker. It's also very good for getting some other gear. So things like the Red Ring drops on Greenhill as well. So you could also go with Greenhill if you want to try and find things that you might be able to trade for a lot or transfer to other characters. But I would probably recommend Pinkle for finding things for FOnewm, but you can look at things like Whitehill, Red Rhea, or Greenhill if you want to find for other characters or more generalized IDs. So what we'll do now, just to round the video out, is we'll do an example boss fight. So I'll just show you a rough idea of how FOnewm can play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the Seal Dragon, and I'm going to use primarily Gizonde on it just to hit loads of different targets on it. So this should give you a rough idea of how FOnewm can play. Again, it is one of the more aggressive forces, so you do just pretty much just all-out nuke with a FOnewm. So all we're going to do is just going to get out the way of him initially. It might look like we're not doing much damage with that Gizonde. It might look like we're only doing 130 damage. But what Gizonde actually does is it actually hits multiple targets. So you can see how fast the Seal Dragon's health is actually going down. Now, once you get to this stage, you may as well just heal because at this point, you can't actually do damage to the dragon. So you just need to wait for it again. Unfortunately, I did miss time that a little bit there, so I didn't quite get the Gizonde in. That's really unfortunate, actually. We got the last hit on the Gizonde there, but he managed to get underground. I think it's because the first Gizonde that we did actually was just before his hitboxes became active. Unfortunately, we got clipped there, which is our bad. I don't know if the dragon's just going to die when it lands, but I will just hit it with another Gizonde to be sure. There we go. So he should die straight away. There we go. So that would have gone faster if, when the dragon was taken off, if I'd have hit it with the first Gizonde, it probably wouldn't have got to dig underground. That should give you a rough idea of how easy it is with FOnewm. Now, again, this is with really, really high end gear. You know, we are using a Psycho Wand, Mother Guard Plus. But that should give you an idea of how it can go at later level. With a low level character, you are going to act fairly similar, so you're probably still going to just spam Gizonde on the dragon, because it does hit multiple parts, despite the game not looking like it does. So I hope it's been useful anyway. So, in summary, FOnewm, very, very offensive class. You are just going to be hitting with things with a lot of attack techniques, but you do have that ability to go with like a hybrid melee role as well if you want to. Ultimately, if you're just looking for a class that just wants to just blow everything up with techniques, this might be the class for you. So, hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions or anything, just leave them below in the comments and we'll try and answer whatever I can. Now, in regards to the channel, so we do 2 videos a week normally. Normally one's for PSO and one is for NGS. We do alternate a little bit between the games that we do though. We also do a live stream on Sundays on YouTube, which is normally PSO or PSO2 NGS. You can also follow me on Twitter or X, which is at Section Skylight, and I post whenever I'm going live and just general information on there. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider liking or subscribing to the channel. Memberships are also open as well, so feel free to join that if you're interested. But hope it's been useful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.